All right, welcome back to the deep dive. Today we're gonna tackle a topic that's absolutely essential for anyone working around cranes.
Absolutely.
We're diving deep into crane safety and focusing specifically on the rules and procedures for disassembling those massive crane booms.
Right, and this is important stuff.
It is.
Whether you're a seasoned safety pro, a crane operator, or someone thinking about getting into that line of work, understanding these regulations is really, really critical.
Yeah, I mean, we're talking about preventing accidents, and that's knowledge everyone needs on a job site.
Absolutely.
So, to get us started, we're going to be focusing on a specific set of OSHA regulations.
Okay.
1926.1405, which outlines some additional steps you need to take when disassembling crane booms and jibs.
Yeah, and it's important to note that these regulations, these OSHA regulations, they're in addition to any manufacturer instructions or your company's own, specific procedures.
Right.
So you always have to be aware of all three layers.
Yeah, safety first. Multiple levels of safety procedures are a good thing.
Yes.
Now, this might sound basic, but before we even think about taking a crane apart, what's the first thing someone on site should be doing?
Great question. You got to start with a thorough inspection of the crane.
Okay.
You need to be looking for any signs of, wear and tear on the pendants, the pins, and all those critical components.
Interesting.
Think of it like a pre-flight check for a plane.
Yeah.
You really don't want any surprises.
No, you really don't.
Once you start taking things apart.
Right, because if you miss something during that initial inspection, it could lead to, serious problems later on.
Absolutely.
So once we've done our due diligence with the inspection, where do we start with the actual disassembly?
Well, let's jump into the first part of OSHA 1926.1405,
Okay.
sections A and B, which focus on these things called pendants.
Pendants.
Now, these are those heavy-duty, steel cables
Oh, yeah?
that support the boom. Imagine like the chains on a swing set, but obviously on a much bigger scale.
Oh, yeah.
Carrying way more weight.
Yeah, those are under immense tension when the boom is extended, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Like holding up a car or something.
More than a car, more like a whole house.
Wow, okay.
That's the kind of force we're talking about.
So why are sections A and B so important then?
Well, they specifically state that you should never, ever remove the pins holding these pendants in place while they're under tension.
That makes sense, but for someone who's, never actually seen this process up close, can you explain why that's so dangerous?
Oh, sure. I've heard stories about incidents where someone thought, oh, I can quickly release this pendant under tension. And in one case, the force of the cable, like recoiling, was so powerful that it ripped through a steel beam nearby.
Oh, wow.
Luckily, no one was hurt.
That's scary.
But it could have been catastrophic.
Yeah.
These pendants are like tightly wound springs,
I see.
just waiting to release all that energy.
Wow. Okay, that definitely paints a vivid picture.
Yeah.
So to be crystal clear, for anyone working on a crane, step one is that pre-disassembly inspection.
Absolutely.
And then when it comes to the pendants,
Yeah.
don't even think about touching those pins while they're under tension.
Exactly. Now, once you've made sure those pendants are secure,
Right.
the next step is to think about how you're going to support the boom as you disassemble it.
Okay.
And this brings us to Section C of 1926.1405, which focuses on the boom sections and ground support.
All right, so we're moving on to ground support.
Right.
We've got the crane prepped.
Yeah.
Those pendants are secure. What's next?
Imagine the boom is like a giant Lego tower.
Oh, okay. I like
You can't just start pulling out pieces from the middle without any support, right?
Right.
Section C basically says that when a section of the boom is resting on the ground, you cannot remove any pins from the sections above it.
So it's like you need to support the weight of those Lego blocks above before you remove the one below.
Precisely. If you try to remove a pin from a section that's still hanging in the air,
Yeah.
it could lead to a collapse.
Right, because that unsupported section is carrying the weight of everything above it.
Exactly. It's like kicking out the legs of a table.
So we're starting to see why this is so crucial for safety professionals
Yeah.
and aspiring crane operators.
Absolutely.
These seemingly small details, they can have huge consequences.
Absolutely.
So we've covered the importance of inspecting those pendants,
Yes.
making sure they're not under tension before removing any pins.
Right.
And we've touched on the need for proper ground support as you start taking apart those boom sections.
Absolutely.
This is a lot to take in, but it's incredibly important stuff.
It really is.
We'll be back to tackle one of the trickiest parts of this whole process, disassembling those cantilevered sections.
Right.
Stay with us.
Okay, so now we're getting to the part of crane disassembly that often requires the most careful planning and execution, dealing with what we call cantilevered sections.
Okay, cantilevered sections. That sounds a little intimidating.
Yeah.
Can you remind me what those are again?
Sure, think of it like the end of a diving board.
Okay.
It's that part of the boom that extends beyond the last point where those support cables, the pendants, are attached.
Gotcha.
And just like you wouldn't want to stand on the very end of a diving board without support.
Right, right.
You can't just start removing pins from a cantilevered section without making sure it's fully supported.
Right. I'm picturing that section of the boom just kind of like hanging out there with nothing underneath it.
Exactly.
So how do you go about supporting something like that? You can't just like prop it up on the ground.
Right. Well, that's where it gets interesting.
Okay.
There are a few different methods depending on the situation and the size of the crane.
Right.
But the principle is always the same. You have to transfer the weight of that cantilevered section to something stable before you even think about touching any pins.
So we might be talking about using temporary support structures like beams or stacks of those sturdy wood blocks, cribbing, right?
Exactly. Or sometimes, especially for larger cranes,
Yeah.
you might even use another crane to provide that support.
Oh, wow.
It's like having a giant helping hand underneath that cantilevered section.
Yeah.
Just to make sure it doesn't come crashing down.
I could see how this would be a real test of skill and knowledge for a crane operator.
Yeah.
Like having to calculate exactly where to place that support, how much weight it needs to bear.
Oh, absolutely.
That's a lot of responsibility.
It is. And this is where experience and a deep understanding of crane mechanics really come into play. It's not something you want to be guessing at.
Right.
In fact, I remember a situation early in my career.
Oh, a story. Let's hear it.
Well, I was observing a team disassembling a fairly large crane.
Okay.
And they were getting ready to detach a cantilevered section.
They had a second crane in position to provide support, but the operator of that second crane, he seemed a little unsure of himself.
Oh.
He was having trouble positioning the crane's hook in the right spot to properly support the weight of that cantilevered section.
I'm already getting nervous.
As you should be.
Yeah.
Thankfully, the foreman noticed that the operator was struggling
Okay.
and immediately called a halt to the operation.
Good.
They spent some extra time discussing the proper positioning, double-checking their calculations,
Right.
and making sure everyone was on the same page before they proceeded.
Yeah, that's smart.
It was a good reminder that even experienced professionals need to stay vigilant
Absolutely.
and never hesitate to speak up if something doesn't feel right.
That's such an important point, especially for those who are newer to the field.
It is.
It's okay to ask questions,
Yes.
to double check,
Yeah.
to make sure everything is 100% safe before moving forward.
Couldn't agree more.
So, where were we? Oh, yeah, those cantilevered sections.
Let's walk through a hypothetical scenario together, just so we can really visualize this process.
Okay, sounds good.
Let's say we've got a 4-section boom, and we've already safely removed that top section.
Okay.
We're ready to detach the next section down, which happens to be a cantilevered section.
All right, so picture that second section sticking out past the pendant attachment points.
Yes.
It's just kind of hanging there, unsupported.
Right, and we know we can't just, yank out the pins, hold that section in place.
Right.
So in this scenario, let's say we're using another crane to support it.
Okay, good choice.
So that second crane will be carefully maneuvered into position.
Right.
And its hook would be attached to the cantilevered section
Yes.
in a way that, fakely transfers the weight.
Exactly.
It's almost like creating a temporary cradle for that part of the boom.
It is. It is.
So that second crane is essentially acting as a giant safety net while we detach that section.
Exactly. Once that cantilevered section is fully supported by that second crane, then, and only then, can we safely remove the pins connecting it to the rest of the boom.
Okay.
And then, with the weight safely transferred, we can use that second crane to lower the detached section to the ground or onto a waiting trailer.
Okay, I think I'm getting this.
Good.
It's like carefully removing blocks from a Jenga tower.
I like that analogy.
You always need to make sure that the structure is stable before you take out another piece.
That's a great way to put it, and it highlights why OSHA 1926.1405D is so important.
Yeah.
It emphasizes the need to take things slowly, methodically,
Right.
and always, always with a focus on stability.
This has been incredibly insightful.
Good.
I'm starting to understand why those regulations, while complex, are absolutely essential.
They're there to protect lives.
Yeah.
And by understanding the logic behind them
Wow.
and visualizing the process, we can all contribute to a safer work environment.
We've covered a lot of ground here.
We have.
From inspecting pendants to understanding those tricky cantilevered sections.
Yeah.
But before we wrap up our deep dive into OSHA 1926.1405,
Okay.
let's take a step back and think about the bigger picture of crane safety.
Right.
After all, these regulations are just one piece of the puzzle, right?
Yeah, absolutely. There are many other factors that contribute to safe crane operation, and we'll explore some of those in our final segment.
We've been really focused on OSHA 1926.1405.
Yeah.
Which is, obviously really important.
It's a foundation, really.
But it's just one piece of this this whole crane safety picture.
Exactly. There's so much more to think about beyond just like, the technical steps. We're talking about a whole culture of safety.
Yeah, because even if everyone knows all the rules,
right,
things can still go wrong if there isn't that communication, that shared commitment to safety.
I completely agree. Like, I can't stress enough how important communication is during crane disassembly.
Yeah.
Every single person involved
Right.
needs to understand the plan, what their role is, the potential hazards, Right.
We're talking about a really complex operation
Yeah.
with, a lot of moving parts, literally.
It's almost like a choreographed dance, but with tons of metal and way higher stakes.
That's a great way to put it.
So for our listeners, especially those who are newer to the world of cranes, what are some practical tips for making sure there's good communication on site?
Well, first of all, never be afraid to ask questions.
Right.
If something is unclear or you're not sure about a procedure, just speak up. Always better to be safe than sorry.
Yeah, don't let anyone pressure you into rushing or skipping steps.
No, absolutely not.
If something doesn't feel right,
Trust your gut.
Yeah.
Less concern.
and pay close attention during those pre-disassembly briefings.
Yes.
That's where the plan is laid out.
Right.
Roles are assigned, potential hazards. It's crucial information.
It is.
And it's not just about listening during those briefings.
Right.
Participate, ask questions, make sure you understand everything
Exactly.
before work begins.
It's a two-way street.
Yeah.
Communication goes both ways.
Right.
So if you see something that could be, a safety issue,
Yeah.
don't hesitate to bring it up to the supervisor or the operator.
Okay, so communication's key.
Yes.
But we also need to talk about ongoing training, professional development, because
Sure.
this world of crane safety is constantly evolving, right? Absolutely. New technologies, regulations are updated, best practices.
Right.
It's crucial to stay up to date.
So how can our listeners keep their skills sharp, especially those, aspiring crane operators?
Well, first of all, take advantage of any training opportunities offered by your employer or your union.
Right.
Those courses can be really valuable.
Yeah.
Hands-on experience, latest safety protocols.
And don't forget about those industry publications, the online resources.
Absolutely. There are some great organizations dedicated to crane safety.
Yeah.
They offer articles, webinars, safety alerts, best practice guides.
It's out there.
It is.
And don't underestimate the power of networking.
Oh, no, definitely not.
Talk to other professionals, go to conferences, be a lifelong learner.
Right. The more you know,
Yeah.
the safer you'll be.
So, to wrap up our deep dive into crane safety, let's just recap those key takeaways from OSHA 1926.1405.
Okay, so never remove pins from pendants under tension.
Right?
Always ensure proper ground support before you detach boom sections.
And take extra care with those cantilevered sections.
Yes,
Making sure they're fully supported before removing any pins.
absolutely.
These regulations are there for a reason.
They are.
They've been developed based on, years of experience and, unfortunately, sometimes accidents.
Right.
So let's learn from those lessons
Absolutely.
and make safety our top priority.
Crane operation is a skilled and demanding profession, but it can also be, really rewarding
Yeah.
if we approach it with the right mindset and a commitment to safety.
So to all our listeners out there, whether you're a seasoned pro or just starting out in the world of cranes,
Yeah.
keep learning, keep sharing knowledge,
Absolutely.
and keep each other safe.
Well said.
Thanks for joining us on the Deep Dive.
Thanks, everyone.